Hello, hello, it's Heather here.
And it's Deb. Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are.
This is
Yeah.
Reluctantly Woo Woo, episode 11.
Episode 11. Oh, we
Yep.
should have commented on that. You've seen Spinal Tap? This one goes to
No.
11. Yeah. All
Mm-mm.
right. Well, maybe a couple people out there will get my joke. Anyway, yes. So this is Reluctantly Woo Woo. And yeah, we're here today. We're going to discuss energy ebbs and flows and how you can feel great and increase your productivity all throughout your various states of feeling and energy. So I want to kind of just recap what is reluctantly woo woo and why we call it that. But we would say that those woo woo things are those little practices that you think seem really unbelievable. They kind of defy the rules of logic, but yet they work. So, we know there's other people that might reluctantly agree with that. And that's what we are here to explore. So, I'm going to let Heather take a lot of this on because this is what I always do.
Yes, you always say that, but
Right.
that doesn't work out, and that's a good thing. So we're talking about ebbs and flows of energy, and well, this came up because Deb texted me and was like, "How about we talk about like the ebbs and flows?" And not sure how it even relates to the body code, which is the form of energy work that we do, which is about releasing trapped emotions and trauma. She's like, "How does am I not sure how it relates?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it totally relates in so many ways." And there's so many things that we can talk about when it comes to ebbs and flows of energy and how to use it um, for you, how to understand it first and how to use it for you. And, when we talk about it, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, that really is so simple. But as humans, we've complicated things so much in our life. And if we just take a look at patterns in the world, we get all the answers of what we need to do, for ebbs and flows of energy. I think this has come up as a thing and like why to talk about it. Well, Deb, why don't you say why did it come up for you as something you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, specifically for me, because I was feeling a little bit I guess, an ebb, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am in the process of, really trying to kick off this energy work business of mine. And I've been trying to approach it more from the feminine standpoint, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But I do kind of think, you know, not necessarily male, female, but masculine, feminine essence, whichever is your stronger, dominant energy. I think, we go through these things, and our business world is traditionally thought of as masculine, so we have to go go go, and if I have work to do, I better do it. Whereas in building this, I've been trying to really kind of embrace the feminine side of building this business and really feeling into it. So when I have a day where I'm like, oh my God, I'm just so exhausted. And sometimes I don't necessarily, I'm pretty diligent about my sleep practices and taking care of myself, but it doesn't matter. Some days you're just freaking tired.
Yeah.
So, I've been trying to embrace that. So that was kind of more where I was thinking about it is like, God, I've been so damn tired for the last couple of days. And rather than beating myself up for it, allowing myself to rest, skip a
Right.
workout. It's not going to kill me. Which is different for me. I'm usually like, no, I've got to go. And so,
Right.
I just thought it would be an interesting conversation because I don't know if other people experience that or question why their energy, wanes and waxes and think that that's a problem. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily a problem.
Well, okay. And so that's like just a jumping point like that. That's it. Like that's a really great point is that when we have these energy ebbs and flows, we've been conditioned, right, to think that, when we're tired, like that we shouldn't be, that it is a problem. Right. And as you mentioned in the masculine, like go, 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 drive, 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 like we should always be on. And that's just not the case. And so when we thought about talking about this, I looked at, okay, what's a way that we can break this down to make people really connect with this and understand, like, just be able to look out their window and be like, oh, this is what I need to do to connect back, to energy and to be able to understand it and then use it for me. And so one of the biggest thing, there's so many things that we can talk about. First off, I mean, we can talk about like, the lunar cycle and how much, a full moon, like all the different moons and new moon, all these things can impact us, right?
Mhm.
And that's just one way. You think about the tide cycles and how, high tide and low tide, it ebbs and flows. And there's like every 12 hours, there's shift and change. So for us to say, oh, it doesn't impact us, like we know that it does. Like,
Right.
you just go to the beach and sit there for a beach and you're going to feel different in the morning than you are going to be in the afternoon, right? So there's the lunar cycles. We can talk about that. We can talk about our circadian rhythms, which is like our master clock that's connected to the 24-hour cycles, and different organs have their peak time in that, right? I mean, we could talk about many episodes just talking about our menstrual cycle and how that impacts us. Okay. And before I jump into the other ones, a couple of just resources, because anybody who knows me knows I'm like resource geek, and I'm always like, oh, you got to read this book. But there's a couple of different ones in this book, and I can't even say that I've read fully through it, because there's a lot that it's like put into practical, but it's called The Optimized Woman. It's using your menstrual cycle to achieve success and fulfillment. Obviously, men, this doesn't apply to you, but men do have their own cycles, and they're men that talk about it. I'm not going to be the one that talks about it.
I think they menstruate.
Right. And so this is a good one just to explain the different things the different things that each day of your cycle, produces, and like where you are in your energy. That one's really good. And then there's this planner that I started to use is called the Do Less Planner. And this is by Kate Northrup, and she talks a lot about energy and using your energy to work for you instead of against you.
Yeah,
and so
her work.
Yes, it's much more in the feminine of using your energy for you. And so when we think about like how to understand energy, if no matter where you are right now, if you're somewhere where you're outside or you can look outside, right? You see nature all around you, right? And nature has cycles. And we think about yearly cycles, right? We have our seasons. And we think about, then you break those seasons down, which we will. Those seasons can be broken down from a year and then into our days. And those seasons also can be broken down. We can use those to break down our life and the cycles of our life. And so I'm just noticing that my fan string is showing in the back. And
what's dancing around behind her?
I know. Let me move that down a little bit. Well, it's going to be there. So and I love this quote, and I'm going to put this up here, and it says, let me put it up there and show you. It says, follow the rhythms of nature and agree your own activity with them. Okay. So when we think about the rhythms of nature, we first have spring. Okay. And spring is all about growth and new life and movement and change. We think about that as the season. Then if we break it down and we look at it as just a human, spring is the time when we're born, right? It's growth, it's new life, it's lots of movement, right? Lots of change, right? And when we think about in terms of our days, spring is the morning time, okay? Spring's when we first wake up, right? So that's the time for growth and new life and movement and change. Right? And spring is each of these seasons in traditional Chinese medicine is connected to different organs. And within those organs, when they're in balance, right, they're going to produce emotions. And so the spring is connected to your liver and gallbladder. And the liver and gallbladder, when it's in balance, produces some emotions such as anger and bitterness and frustration. Right? And so you think about springtime, right? And if things aren't going the way that you want, you're trying to move and grow, like you're getting frustrated, people are getting in your way, how dare they, right? That's all like springtime stuff. And when it comes to energy and like trapped emotions and trauma, right? If you have a liver that tends to be weak, right, you may find that you're going to experience and live in more of those type of emotions of anger and bitterness and frustration. And so I was talking to someone the other day, one of my clients, and one of the things that came up was that he keeps waking up around 1:30 in the morning. And when you look at the circadian rhythm, liver is between 1 and 3, and that's the time that it is detoxing and working to like rejuvenate itself and like cleanse itself. And it needs that time to just be able to not have to worry about doing all these other things, processed food, etc. And he was like, I don't understand. He's like, I don't drink. I don't do all these things that are bad for my liver.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I get that. And right, like you can inherit, we all just have innately a place in our body that tends to be a little bit weaker. Right. And he does, have like, he'll get frustrated and get into that like, resentment phase
Mm-hmm.
when things aren't going the way that he wants it to. Right. So we were working on getting his, releasing what was in his liver so that it can be operating at 100%. So understanding that spring is all about growth and new life and new movement, and not just the like season of spring, but like morning time is all about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of people, when they get up, right, then like morning time is the best time for things to get done. And there are a lot of people who would say, but I'm not a morning person.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so you've recently gone camping a bunch or enough, right?
Yeah.
When you're camping, right, what do you find that like, what do you find is your like sleeping routine when you're camping?
Well, it's actually not much different than my old lady sleeping routine when I'm home.
Right. So for people who don't have like your sleeping routine, right?
Yeah, when the sun goes down, you go to bed. Like maybe, you might sit by the campfire for a minute, but pretty much when the sun's down, you're down, and the sun comes up, you wake up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But people nowadays, and I'm sure this probably is very true of many people camping now, because people bring all of their, devices and everything with them, right? So sun goes down, you're in front of the campfire, and you're like, or watching something, it's like, why do you bring a TV with you when you're camping? That's a whole other,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am a little bit of a nerd camper where I'm like, no, I came out here to be in nature, and I like to go places where my cell phone doesn't even work. So that's my goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So whenever people say to me, like, you don't understand, I'm a night person. I'm like, I do, because I fall into that so much, I'm like, oh, I got to stay up. I got to get stuff done, but when you look at, if you were to strip away all these things, like we naturally just fall into the rhythms of nature. Right.
Mm-hmm.
As Deb said,
pretty much.
Pretty much. Right. I mean, we could just end here. Just look at nature. Right?
Yeah.
We're done. Yeah. So springtime, is growth, and that's a great time for planning and for doing work, right? And then we have summer, okay? And summer is all about warmth and transformation and this dynamic, like sparkling, kind of energy, right? And you think about seasons of life too, like the teens, 20s, right? That's like summertime is just all about lots of fiery type stuff, right? And it's a really good time. I didn't say this about spring. Spring is a good time to make plans for the future, right? Summer is a great time connecting with others, right? That's when more people like hang out together. Not this summer, but
2020.
Oh, right. But typically people like do more together. Okay. And summertime is all about your heart and your small intestines. And when those organs are imbalanced, you experience emotions such as insecurity, feeling lost, heartache. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting as a metaphor for what our summer has recently been like. And if you think about the collective energies and, how that's kind of played out, that's super interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's been a lot of that this summer for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when someone is feeling like they just can't seem to move forward, they're not having like this movement that they want, typically they're experiencing those emotions, okay, of heartache. I mean, you think about if you've lost somebody, you like the last thing you want to go is to go out and produce things in the world.
Right.
Okay. You just want to cry.
Yeah.
And so releasing those emotions that are keeping your heart swirling in that place is really beneficial to get that back online so that you can connect back to the season of summer in your life.
Yeah.
Right? And then I know most people think we have 4 seasons, but in Chinese medicine, there's 5 seasons, right? And there's late summer. And late summer is all about stabilizing and balancing. Okay. And it's time when you start to prepare for harvest. And also what I love about this time is great for community and mealtime. I mean, most people, I mean, I could be wrong on this, but I think most people make plans to go out to dinner with people more than going out to breakfast.
Yep.
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah. And when it comes to the late summer, that is the stomach and your spleen and pancreas organs that are more in play at that point. And when those are in balance, you experience emotions of anxiety and low self-esteem and failure. And those are heavy ones. Right? Yeah. And is if you don't feel good enough to go out and harvest, right?
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen in your world. Right. And then you don't have the harvest, so to speak. And then you don't have anything to sustain you for the winter time.
Interesting.
And yeah. And then we have autumn, which is all about harvest and production. And this is it's a good time to harvest what's been planted and prepare for winter. And this is the time when you're reaping all of the benefits of everything, all the work that you had done. And this is all about your lungs and large intestine in traditional Chinese medicine. And when your lungs and large intestine are off balance, then you experience emotions of grief, rejection, sadness, sorrow. I ask people I've worked with people who've lost others and I'm like, what are you feeling? And they're like, it's just this heaviness in my chest. Right. And when we think about that emotions impact certain, like we can feel them in different parts of our body. Like, I don't know about you, but I rarely say like my, I just got my heart broken and I can really feel it in my forearm. Like,
yeah.
Always like I feel it like in my heart, right? Or like I just don't feel, I just feel this like sadness, and it's like, my gut, right? And that's the small intestine, their large intestines, right? And so when we are feeling those emotions, right, and we're not allowing ourselves to express them, they get stuck inside of us, and then we can't let things flow. And when things aren't flowing, just like, we talked about, we were talking about before the call, I was talking about like, if you have a river and you have a bunch of rocks that are in and like damming it up, that river's not going to be able to flow as freely as it's meant to, right? Which impacts the whole ecosystem around it. Right? So it's the same is true with us when we have these trapped emotions and trauma. It affects like our ability, like if we can't harvest, right, then that's going to affect the next season of our life. Right?
Yeah.
So then we have winter, and winter is all about inward reflection and rest and restoration. Right. And so, let me back up. In autumn, right, and late, our like Indian summer, late summer, and are we allowed to call it Indian summer anymore?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm sure somebody will tell me. So a late summer. Right. And autumn, right, that is at the time when you're like in your season of life, right, when you've gotten the kids out of the house, like, you're starting to experience like harvest, like the abundance of your work, everything that you've done, like how much you've worked, and you're like, oh, this is when people start to move into like retirement phase and starting to enjoy the fruits of their labor, so to speak. Right? And then wintertime, is all about inward reflection and rest and restoration, right? Hibernation time. And so when we look at our season of life, right, that's when we get into our older years. Right? And then when we look at the season of our day, that's, a nighttime, when we start to wind down to go to bed and we start to just like take the time to reflect. And that's the best time to do it anyway. A lot of people just sit in front of the TV and, don't take the time, but that's the most optimal time to be able to just sit and reflect and to like calm yourself down. And that's connected to, as far as your organs wise, it's connected to your kidneys and bladder. And when those are in balance, you experience emotions like fear and dread and creative insecurity. I feel like I can't put myself out there. There's nothing I can do to make money. I don't have any ideas. Right? When those are all off balance. And so when we can understand and just look at, okay, what season, like nature all has this cycle, okay, this pattern. And we look at ourselves and we think, okay, it's right now like winter, meaning it is nighttime, and I should be driving and producing, right? Why is this a struggle? Because it's not how nature intended it to be.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, I'm sure there's people that will push back and say, no, that's when I am my most creative. I guess maybe your cycle might be a little bit different than other people's, but I think you still need to allow for all of those phases,
Right. And oops, I put the wrong thing up there. Put the wrong banner up there.
That's one of the ones that's written on my mirror.
Yeah. And that's why it's like follow the rhythms of nature and agree in your own activity with them. It's like understand that there are patterns, okay? And every single thing has a pattern. And when you start to track your own patterns, then you can see, oh, wait a minute, I am more productive at nighttime than I am at daytime. So trying to work at morning time is useless. So I'm going to put my work time, during these hours. But it takes it takes the ability to observe your own patterns.
Yes.
Okay? Honestly, true. Yes. Yep. And to notice like, okay, this is when I'm good. This is when I'm not good.
Right.
Just like nature has those.
Totally. I do want to acknowledge that we're making it sound awfully easy. If you have children at home and you're working at home with a spouse or a partner, what's optimal for you may not be optimal for everybody in your household. So there might be some juggling that has to happen. Yes. Or some negotiations, something, but, we are making it sound very simple, but acknowledging that it's not always quite that easy to just make a shift.
Right. It is simple in that there's a framework, right? To understand that there are certain times that things happen and certain times that just things don't happen. Right. And being able to align with that as much as possible within the context of your life, right, is when you're going to be able to be at your optimal energy state. Right? And, the thing that like we talked about at the beginning is like, why you want to talk about this is because the thing that is hardest for most people when it comes to their energy, and managing their energy ebbs and flows is judgment. Judgment that I should be producing more now, but I really don't want to. Hey,
I think that comes from this internal messaging that rest is wasted time. When it's not, you're charging up for the next big thing. But those shoulds of, even if when you try to sit and relax, if you're constantly like, but my to-do list, you're not really helping yourself get through that to-do list.
Right. Yeah. And that's like, I can say that this whole season, like this past, since March has really been helpful for me in that I've really been paying so much more attention, to my energy levels and realizing I really am. I'm so much more productive in the morning. Like I get up and I'm like, get it done. Right. But then as the day goes on, I'm like, and so by the time I'm done work and then I take Charlie, to the dog park and I come home and I'm like, you're not going to get anything more out of me. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, like tonight, I know that I have a couple of people that I have to do some energy work on after I come back from the park, right? But I have to like keep it in my mind and just keep my mind up. And then I know, okay, then I can like allow myself to unwind. Right. But if we go in this, like everything is go, 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 like that's when you end up with adrenal fatigue. That's when you end up, with like so many diseases and imbalances in the body, which doesn't in the long term work for creating and like having, a high energy
Absolutely. Yeah.
experience.
Your goal is to be more productive. I think it's kind of the same theory of, when you're on a plane and they're like, put on your own, oxygen mask before you help your kids, because you've got to, if you want to give more energy out, you've got to allow your container to refill, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And just paying attention, to what that is, for you and your seasons. And so what I'd hope that you would do after listening to this is just think about like, okay, if I'm going to think about like my life as a season, what season am I in? Right? Am I 16 years old listening to this, and am I like in, starting like transitioning from spring to summer, or am I 66 years old and, in autumn going into winter, right? And just acknowledging that instead of like, oh, like I should be older or I should be younger or I should, like just this is the season that I'm in, right? And that's the beautiful thing is like we all get the chance in whatever capacity to go through, different seasons. And just notice, like do a tracker for the next couple of days and just like notice each day, like when is my energy the highest? When did I feel like the most productive in my day? And when did I feel the least productive?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And see if you can arrange your life in that way so that the best work is going to come out of you instead of like shoddy work. And I don't know about you, Deb, but I know for me, like when I'm in that place where I'm just like, oh, I feel like I got nothing to give, but I have to get work done. It takes me like, something that could take an hour will take me 5 hours.
Oh my God. And then, I'm annoyed. I've actually at this point, I'm usually pretty good at being like, okay, like if it's, for example, something I'm trying to write, I'm struggling for it to flow out. I usually know like, if it's night and I'm like, but this is due tomorrow, like, I'm like, you know what? I'm way better off to go to bed and get up insanely early to finish it and actually get it done, than to try to stay up till 2 a.m. and still not get it done. Or have it be crap, definitely. I agree. Or even in the afternoon, I would say, I don't know how naps are a weird thing for people, but I will be like, you know what, if I'm hitting like a crash and burn in the afternoon, or I'm trying to like be creative in some way and it's not coming, I literally will go take a 20-minute nap and it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful for y'all, and understanding too that like when we are living in certain emotions consistently, more than likely it means that you have some trapped emotions and trauma stuck inside of you. And the reason why you keep living it is because our outer world is a reflection of our inner world, right? And so if we're living in a state of anger and frustration and resentment, and it's like these people piss me off all the time, it's because that energy of pissed off is inside of you. Mm-hmm. And we need to shift that and release that so that you can live in more of the energy of peace, right? And that's, where the body code comes in, so that you can easily like fall into those ebbs and flows and not be in a place of judgment of yourself. Mm-hmm. Because when you're aligned with yourself, you're like what I know what I'm trying to say, but it's not coming out. Like when you're aligned with yourself, the frequency of which you dismiss yourself is so much less.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that you don't have emotions that come up. Like, I work with some people and they're like, oh, I felt anxiety again. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I was going to point that out. And I know we've talked about this before, and it's definitely something that now I'm much better at practicing, but allowing yourself to freaking feel them for a minute. I think when you're talking, there's kind of some nuance there, right? So like if you feel sad for a moment, or if you feel angry for a moment, if you feel anxiety, feel it for a little while. If it becomes chronic, where this is the state you're living in for days on end, or, years, weeks, I don't know, whatever. If it starts to become like, oh my gosh, I'm questioning why I'm feeling this for such a prolonged time. Yeah, we have to look at why. But to feel it acutely and let yourself feel it so that it can go away is a great practice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, sometimes where it's perfectly reasonable to feel a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of sadness, or, but we're trained that any of those so-called bad emotions should be, I don't know, pushed away.
Right.
We don't want to feel that.
Right.
And you're going to feel that sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And it's really not demonizing any emotion.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, this is the energy that I'm feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And feeling this energy, and is this the energy that I want to stay in, or the energy that I want to get out of? Because if you think about it, I was thinking about this earlier today. I was thinking about, like, people so much want to never feel, what they would label as negative emotions, right? Mm-hmm. But if you never felt hurt, right? Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, nothing hurts you. Then you're like, people are gonna be like, well, you're just a heartless bitch.
Yeah, you're just a little bit inside. Yeah.
Right. So we have to watch what we say we want, because we don't necessarily not want to feel them, right? We want to be able to know how to move through them.
Yes. I mean, I think there's some interesting analogies, several books that I've read, so I can't even cite one, where they will talk about, there's a reason why we love dramatic movies and sad movies. And we do want to feel. We want mm-hmm. to. That's why we elect to put ourselves through that for 2 hours, to watch a movie that makes us cry our eyes out or scream in terror or whatever it is.
Right.
It is something we actually enjoy on some level, right? We seek it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
exactly. Yeah. So if you are finding that you have these, you're feeling like, you know what, the primary emotions that I live in on a day-to-day basis, are things like dread and fear and sorrow and grief and anxiety and insecurity, chances are you probably have some trapped emotions and trauma in your body, and some body code work would be really helpful for you. And that's what we're here for. We'd love to help you with that. And so, you can reach out to either of us. You can, Deb, you can reach out to her via her email. Have that posted here. And you can find her on Instagram. It's starting a new Instagram page. Mm-hmm. And let me just type this up here. I had it somewhere else, but then,
yeah.
So you can find her here as well. I'm going to put that up.
Yeah, it's demysticism. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Or, you can go to my website, heathere.com. Put that up there and click on the schedule time to talk, and we can talk about how this can work for you. And we'd love to help you with that. I want to, before we sign off, Deb, I want to follow up with you on some work that we did on our last session.
Yeah.
We had, for those of you, if you didn't catch our last session, we had done some energy work on Deb on the statement, I am meant to be wealthy so I can do more good in the world. And I'm just curious, how's that feeling for you now?
Well, one of my follow-up practices to this is I literally have that written on my mirror. Mm-hmm. So, and along with a bunch of other little quotes specifically around money, because it's something that I'm trying to dig deeper in. That relationship is one that I think we all probably continually want to work on. Yeah. But I mean, I'm feeling very confident about, the reality of it is like still to come, but I'm feeling very comfortable in those statements. And for anybody that's curious, that truly is like part of the practice for me is I literally write it on my mirror. I say these things out loud to myself every time I walk into my bathroom. You know, and I have a pretty big mirror, so I can write them on one side and still have a clear side.
Be able to see yourself.
Yeah. Like it's a double sink deal there, and then it's got the two what do you call those, medicine cabinets. So one half is literally like, you know, heaven forbid somebody needs to use that side of my sink because they won't be able to see themselves. There's so many monsters on there, but it's feeling pretty good. So, you know, we'll keep working with it, but I think, you know, we'll see how it all plays out.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. Okay, so let us know what you think about understanding like energy in this way, and how to like align with nature to be able, or just use nature, use the patterns of nature, use the cycles of nature to look at your own cycles, to create like what are the ways that I flow in energy, and what are the ways that I'm like time to pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just want to.
That's my big, give yourself permission.
Permission. Yes. And I'm gonna take my nail file here and use this as like this magic wand to like magic wand to like release you of any judgment of how things should be and shouldn't be. So once we release that judgment, we can flow so much better energy wise. And we can move out of this error of like, go, everything. Like you're not good unless you're producing, to like getting in sync with nature, getting in sync with your intuition. Just being with yourself. So until next time, we will see you all later. Have a great day.
Bye.